1978 European Championships in Lilford Park. Heine Martin reports on the event held in England. Lilford Park is an amusement park about 100 kilometres north of London, in the far corner of which there is a permanent track for RC cars. It is quite narrow, only 3 metres wide in places, very undulating and quite slow with 4 hairpin bends. This is where the annual European Championship for Formula and Sport classes, organised by the European Federation for Radio-Controlled Cars, EFRA, took place this year. A week before the competition, some familiar faces from previous European Championships could already be seen in Lilford. The closer the first day of the competition came, the more the paddock filled up. Naturally, everyone wanted to make the most of the free practice offered by the organisers. As usual, the free practice sessions did not produce a group of favourites, as the drivers usually did not use their best engines, but rather looked for the best factory setup or the best tyres. Lap times of around 20 seconds were set in the Formula class and 19 seconds in the Sport class. On Thursday afternoon, the participants' transmitters were checked for compliance with the specified transmission frequency. Some drivers were wide-eyed after being convinced that the radio interference could be rectified by repairing the transmitter. Friday was reserved for controlled training. Each driver, together with 5 others, was called up for a 10-minute training run. As a novelty at a European Championship, the organizer had a 3-minute race run at the end of each group's training time. The number of laps achieved here was to be used to divide the drivers into the preliminary groups so that fast drivers would not be hindered by less fast ones during the scoring runs. In itself, this idea is excellent, but it means a lot more work for the race organizers. The organizers were probably aware of this, and so the regrouping was limited. In this type of training, the drivers had to go all out in their own interest, so that the fronts quickly became clear. Fastest in the Formula class was Peter Burvitz from the Netherlands, in the Sport class Keith Plested from Great Britain. Behind them was a pack of around 30 drivers, all of whom were also good for victory, including some German participants in the shape of Norbert Meyerhofer, Karl-Heinz Wohl, Rainer Zimmer and Joachim Nasser. The late arrival and the resulting lack of training was noticeable among the other German riders. During a successful banquet in the evening, all participants received a small commemorative trophy. After a good and plentiful meal, a movie about last year's World Championship in California was shown. The first qualifying race for the Formula racing cars began punctually at 9:00 a.m. on Saturday morning. The sky was overcast, but it wasn't raining yet. Franco Sabatini set a bomb time in his first run, 15 laps in 4 feet 51.3. But after the run of the 9th group, disaster struck. It started to rain. This meant that the participants for the intermediate and final heats had already been decided. After all the drivers had finished their first heat, the organizer interrupted the race and asked all the team leaders to join him. A proposal by the Dutch to cancel the first heat of the first 9 groups and to hold it again, now on a wet track, did not find a majority, so that the organizer decided to wait until 2:30 p.m. at the latest for better weather in order to go through with the race in any case. A decision that was certainly the right one, even if it disadvantaged the riders who would not have done well in the first run-up or those who were in groups 10 to 15. But luck is also part of it. Well, the track only dried out again towards the end of the 3rd run, so that no rider could improve enough to displace one of those who had set their best time on a dry track from the first 10 places. There was great joy in the Austrian camp, who were able to get 2 of their 4 participants into the intermediate run. The German drivers were unlucky. Only Wolfgang Kuttner from Augsburg was able to find his usual driving style on a dry track. The reward was a 19th place. The others messed up their first heat and then had to pick their way through puddles or, like Joachim Nasser, Karl-Heinz Wohl and Rainer Zimmer, decided not to start due to the hopelessness of driving exclusively on a wet track. The intermediate heat did not offer too much excitement and was a sure prey for Raymond Andexlinger, who after a bad start worked his way forward constantly and even lapped the longtime leader Ver van Helden 3 times. In the battle for 2nd place, which also meant a place in the final, Jean-Pierre Ruchat was able to beat Keith Kreuzberg in the end thanks to his better nerves. However, Franco Sabatini was the clear favourite for the final race, as his engine stopped immediately after he took the lead. After the pit stop, he had barely worked his way up to the leading trio, consisting of Jean-Pierre Ruchat, Raymond Andexlinger and Georges Thierens, when his car only zigzagged on the straight, presumably due to a defect in the differential. So another pit stop and a chase to catch up with the leaders, which now consisted of Rutschat, Thierrens and Hans-Olof Olsen, who had pushed forward with a consistent but unobtrusive driving style. Raymond Andixlinger had to retire in the middle of the race due to loose engine mounting bolts. In the end, there were 4 drivers on one lap and positions were constantly changing. No European Championship is complete without a scandal. This was also the case here after the wave-off. There were endless discussions about the ranking and timekeeping. In the announcement, the organizer had stated that the last lap of the preliminary heats may not be completed, but that this must be done in the intermediate and final heats. However, the organizer himself did not adhere to this rule in the intermediate run, nor in the final run, as was evident from the times, but asked the drivers to do so via the track announcer. By this time, however, so many helpers had already run onto the track that it was no longer possible to continue. Nobody really knew anymore. The Italians did not accept their trophies and even lodged a protest afterwards, which was withdrawn after a lengthy discussion. The whole affair could have been avoided if the drivers and helpers had been better informed by the race organizers, but this happened on Sunday. It should also be noted that Franco Sabatini did not start on Sunday. According to official statements, he did not feel well. The decision in the sport class was made on Sunday in dry weather. Right from the start, the Dutch and the English left no doubt that they wanted to have a say this time. Of the total of 10 participants in the intermediate and final heats, they also provided 8. From a German perspective, it was pleasing that Rainer Roskothen, the fastest German in 23rd place, Bernd Ulitzka, Joachim Nasser and Norbert Meyerhofer were able to join the club of 14 lap drivers. However, the seconds missing to the top will certainly be found once we have more permanent routes. Joachim Nasser seems to be plagued by bad luck in his foreign starts after his odyssey to the race in Monaco. He perhaps still has the story to tell. His best engine was destroyed here because a competitor from the following group received his transmitter too early and switched it on. The intermediate heat was won safely by Debbie Preston, with Dave Martin in second place. Both pulled away from the field from the start and finished the run without any problems. The final race will probably go down in history as the final race of the dead engines. Apart from the local matador, Dave Martin, all the other drivers had their engines stop at least once. Only Peter Berwitz was able to catch up with Dave Martin again after his pit stop, also due to engine failure, but on the last lap the engine let Peter down once more.